Hey guys, it's Ryan Hootmacher again, back for another journey with the Humble Bowl. So today we're gonna do a seared pork loin and we're gonna do a kale salad with balsamic honey mustard and some other good things. And then we're gonna do a really sweet, slow roasted potato. So let's get started. For a full list of ingredients for this recipe, go to wellbeyondfood.com. Okay, so getting started on the slow roasted sweet potatoes, I wanted to give you two options right here. So we have a Japanese sweet potato and we have a garnet sweet potato. Nutritionally, there's not a huge difference because they're both packed with a lot of goodness, especially antioxidants and fiber. For the case, this is a little bit sweeter, less starchy, and this almost has the flesh of like a Yukon potato with a little bit of sweetness. So I want you to be able to see the difference later. So slow roasting, what I'm gonna do is just take enough foil to roll this, cover it, and then I twist the ends and I roll them over. So I don't want any ends sticking out. Seems pretty simple, but it makes a big difference because the idea of roasting these and wrapping them means that we wanna trap all the steam because it cooks it quicker and more consistently. So let's toss these in the oven. All right, so I got the oven preheated to 400 degrees. We're gonna do these for about 35 to 45 minutes. Let's talk about kale really quickly. All right, I can see some yawns going on right now, but have no fear. This is how we make good things for us delicious. So we have two different types of kale. You've probably seen these before. This is curly kale, all right? And this goes by three different names: black kale, Tuscan kale, and lacinato kale, all right? Nutritionally, very, very similar. They have just as much antioxidants as spinach. They're a nutritional powerhouse, but how we eat them differs a little bit. So to prepare these, here's what I wanna show you. What we're looking for is, we wanna get rid of the leafy part. So with the black kale right here, this is a little bit more of a softer leaf. And what we want to do for any type of kale is remove the rib, all right? But I put this aside. This is the part that we want. So once again, what I did was opened it up. I tore these two right here, and then the quick way is just pull it through your hand. Make sure that you don't have as much rib left. If it is thick, just give it one more pull. But this is the usable part. I put this part aside. With the curly kale, here's what I like to do for this. Once again, pretty inedible as raw. So we want to get rid of that in our salad. So I go downward on the bottom stem and then simply just pull it right through my fingers. So I made this motion, right like that. The leaves come off. I put the stem to the side. Now, I'm going to bring the bowl into the picture here. So I've got a nice separation of both types of kale right here. It has so much surface area, and when it grows, it can pick up a lot of sediment, a lot of soil and debris. So I want to wash these underwater and submerge them. Agitate them under cold water so the dirt falls to the bottom, and then I'll lay them out on a towel and dry them, or spin them in a salad spinner. So it's time, now that we've dried these, after we've washed these, we're going to cut these. So you've heard of massaging your kale before. I don't necessarily know that I think massaging is the best way to describe it. More of like a scrunching. So I want to break down some of that fibrous structure and make it more pliable. And this is going to help me when I'm cutting it because I'll be able to create little tighter bundles, because what we want to do is cut strips. I've got it balled up in my fingers, and what you'll notice I'm going to do is I'm moving my finger back every time, repositioning, and I'm cutting strips. So this is going to be the end result right here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the curly kale right over here. Okay? Got a nice bundle, moving my fingers backward. So now that we have our chopped kale in a bowl, we set this aside. We want to make a nice vinaigrette so it balances out with a little bit of sweet and sour with our bitterness. All right, with our vinaigrette, what we're going to do is make a balsamic honey mustard for that kale. So I'm going to do equal parts of some really nice balsamic vinegar, probably about 2 tablespoons in there. Now, you can use any type of balsamic vinegar. One of the things I ask you to look out for is make sure it's real balsamic vinegar. A lot of times there's caramel color added to vinegars to make it look like balsamic. So you just want to make sure you do a nice one. So now I have honey going in, about 2 tablespoons here. The honey is going to balance out the acidic balsamic element. And then we're going to add a little bit of Dijon mustard to emulsify this. Okay. Next up I have a little bit of grapeseed oil. You can do olive oil, avocado oil, whatever you're vibing on. Equal parts there. Then I'm going to add a little bit of water to thin this out. And of course, we're going to go with some salt and pepper in here. And if you want to add a little savoriness, you could even add a little minced shallot or some garlic right now, but we're going to keep it just simple. I'm going to whisk this together, and then we're going to add this to the kale salad. And what's cool is we can dress our salad hour, 2 hours before we eat it, because kale is really hearty and it really holds up well and breaks down and gets the flavor going with this sweet sour vinaigrette. So we're dressing the kale salad right now. What I want to do is I'm going to add a little bit of sweetness. I took some raisins that I soaked in some hot water to make them nice and plump. We're going to put these in here for a nice textural and sweet contrast. Sunflower seeds and our raisins tossed in there, a nice hearty portion. Here goes the dressing. So we're going to dress this salad. We're waiting on our baked sweet potato, and we're going to go cook our pork chop next, so everything will come into alignment perfectly. Get this tossed together. Make sure it's nice and dressed. Every leaf has the goodness on it. Got a couple of jumpers right there. It's all good. This is a nice, beautiful cut of pork loin from Hanson Farms in Santa Rosa, California. This fat cap on here right now can be removed, especially if you're being mindful of saturated fat. But it is pasture raised, so it is a healthier version than the typical stuff you would see in the grocery stores, the conventional stuff. So nice lean cut right here. We're going to season this. About a 9-ounce piece of pork loin. We're going to season it well on both sides. Salt and pepper only. We're going to go unadulterated because we have so much flavor going on with the sweet potato and the kale salad that we're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to sear this. So let's go ahead and add some grapeseed oil, which handles well for high heat like the searing that we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and set this in the pan. I move it around to make sure that I have all that healthy fat covering the top of the pork. So we want to make sure we have a nice connection to the pan with that fat between it and the pan. So to get a nice sear on each side, we're going to go for about 2 minutes on our pork chop. We want a nice color. And then I'm going to take the pan and finish it in the oven and let it continue cooking for about 5 to 8 minutes. So we've gone for about 2 minutes. We can see a nice, beautiful sear. 2 minutes more on this side, and then boom, into the oven. All right, into the oven for 5 to 8 minutes, and we'll pull those along with the sweet potatoes in a second. So we've got our kale salad that's been dressed. We've got our sweet potatoes and our pork chop in the oven. So let's go ahead and talk about some toppers for our kale salad. So we want to add some elements to give some distinct textures and flavors. So onions are fantastic. Here's a little tip. A red onion is a little bit sweeter, but any type of onion, if you love onion but you don't like the onion breath, thinly slice your onions and then soak them in ice water or overnight in the refrigerator, and the tannins are going to dissipate and soak into the water. So when you rinse the water, you have a really nice onion without the onion breath. So that's going to be a topper. I also want to use a little bit of a Granny Smith apple. It has a nice tartness to it. And then we had some store-bought roasted beets that were pre-done. I'm also going to add some of these for a nice element of earthy sweetness. I like to do a small dice on my beets because I like to distribute that earthy, sweet flavor across all of my bites with my salad. So just a couple of little chops here. So you can see that. Nice little elements. And then as far as apple is concerned, you don't have to use the whole apple. It's a nice color variation, and I'm also going to look at some small dice for this as well. So you can see I'm cutting slabs, and once I cut those slabs, I turn them sideways. I'm going to give them one cut that way, one cut that way, and now I've got sticks. So now I have some nice elements in my salad besides those raisins and sunflower seeds. So let's remove our pork chop. This guy's been in here for about 8 minutes. And what's important is it's in a hot pan. It needs to cool down. We need to allow it to rest and relax. So we're gonna let it do that for about 5 minutes. It'll continue to cool down and the juices will loosen up on it, and we'll cut this in just a few minutes. So let's check out those sweet potatoes. These have been in here for about 40 minutes. Now I want these to rest so that they can cool down before we touch them. It's really hard to unwrap these when they're hot like this. Okay, so these guys are super, super luscious and soft. So when we unwrap these, just before we plate, we want these to still be nice and warm, which they are. You can see some of the sugar caramelized inside of here, so it's a little bit sticky. But what I want to show you is the difference between the garnet and the Japanese. So this cuts like a hot knife through butter. But what you can see is the lusciousness of this garnet sweet potato. Oh, so sweet and earthy. And then we have a little bit more of a simple, less wet texture, a little bit starchier for the Japanese, which has a nice mild sweetness to it. So I'm going to give both options. We're going to go ahead and load these into our bowls because we're going to look to build those bowls. So this is the nice complex carbohydrate portion of our bowl. And let's go ahead and add the kale salad that has our sunflower seeds and our raisins tossed in there, a nice hearty portion. So we're looking for like 2 cups worth of vegetables in here. A little bit more. And then let's not forget our garnishes. So we're going to go with a little bit of red onion on there for texture and savoriness. If you had scallion, you could do scallion as well. If you had white onion or yellow onion, that's fine. Then I'm going to go with a little bit of Granny Smith apple for a little sexy crunch and some pop, a little acidity. And then let's go ahead and add the beets to the top because it makes that color variation look fantastic. Make sure you have a towel laying by the way, so you don't dye your hands. You want to wipe those. We've got all the elements. Now let's bring the pork to the dish. All right, so this is cooled down. I'll go ahead and slice this up. Looks like we got more of like a medium well, but you know what? If I was cooking this for my sister, I think she would be in heaven. So let's see, you can see all the juices. This is a nice lean cut, but so much flavor and so much juice. Just with salt and pepper, we get a ton of flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this element to the salad. All right. This looks like a satisfying salad to me. A little pinch of salt right on that sweet potato. And this is the finished product. Seared pork loin with kale and balsamic honey mustard and a slow roasted sweet potato.